Welcome to our deep dive into information architecture.
Sounds pretty technical.
It is, but stick with us. You know how sometimes you visit a website and it's a nightmare to find anything?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, that's bad information architecture. Today we're diving into the principles behind organizing and accessing information effectively. And we've got some visuals and real-world examples to make it all crystal clear. Ready to explore.
I'm in. It's fascinating how much we rely on these structures without even realizing it.
Right. So let's start with the basics. This image on slide 2 shows us the core elements: organization, labeling, metadata, and navigation schemes. What do you think? Are these the key ingredients for making information manageable?
I think so, yeah. And the great thing is that this applies to way more than just websites. Think about libraries, massive databases, even how you organize files on your own computer. It's all about making information accessible and usable, right?
Exactly. So maybe we can finally tackle my overflowing downloads folder after this.
We can try.
But before we get sidetracked, let's talk about metadata. Slide 3 has this funny illustration of an elephant, but I'm not sure how it connects to metadata.
It's a clever analogy. Imagine a few people feeling different parts of an elephant, like the trunk, the legs, the tail. Each person describes the elephant based on their limited experience. Metadata is like those descriptions.
I see.
It gives us different perspectives on the same piece of data, helping us grasp the whole picture. We get a more complete understanding.
Okay, that makes sense. But metadata seems like a huge topic. Are there different types?
You bet. There's structural metadata, which is all about hierarchy. Think chapters in a book or folders within folders on your computer. Then there's descriptive metadata. That's focused on the content itself, like keywords, a quick summary, or the author's name.
Oh, like tags on a blog post.
Exactly. And finally, we've got administrative metadata. That tells us about the management of the data, like who created it, when it was last updated, and the file format.
Okay, so it's basically adding labels and context to our data.
You got it. So everyone knows what they're looking at and how to use it.
Makes sense. Speaking of labels, this data dictionary on slide 4, is this related?
Absolutely. It's like a master list defining every piece of data in a system. Each entry has the data type, maybe a brief description. Think of it as a detailed map for understanding how the data is structured and what it all means.
So it's like a behind-the-scenes guide for the data. Super helpful for large data sets, I imagine.
For sure. A well-defined data dictionary is key for any information system. It helps with consistency, clarity, and accuracy, which are pretty important, right?
Absolutely crucial. Now, slide 5 is all about classification and categorization. I have a feeling this is where things get really interesting. How do we actually organize information in a meaningful way?
Well, both involve grouping things together, but there's a key difference. Classification is very systematic, using a fixed set of rules, like the Dewey Decimal System in a library. Each book has its specific place based on predefined categories.
That's why I can never find anything in a library. Just kidding. But it's definitely very rigid.
It is. And then you've got categorization,
Which is more?
flexible. It's about grouping things by their similarities, even if there's no strict rule, like how you organize your closet. Maybe you group by color, season, occasion, whatever works for you.
I see. So classification is like a strict librarian, and categorization is more like go with your gut.
You got it. And both have their pros and cons depending on what you're organizing and how much structure you need. It's all about finding the right tool for the job.
And understanding the difference, which we've definitely done now. So on to controlled vocabularies. Slide 6 says they help everyone use the same language. Sounds like a recipe for avoiding confusion.
Absolutely. Controlled vocabularies are all about clarity. We define a specific set of terms everyone agrees on. Think of it as a shared dictionary for a specific field. Gets everyone on the same page.
Makes sense, especially in fields like science or medicine where precision is super important.
Right. A controlled vocabulary eliminates ambiguity, streamlines communication, and makes searching for information so much easier.
Oh, I see. Like if everyone's using the same keywords, it's easier to find relevant results. No more wading through a million unrelated web pages.
Exactly. Now let's level up to taxonomies on slide 7.
Taxonomies. Are they like controlled vocabularies on steroids?
Kind of. Imagine taking a controlled vocabulary and organizing it hierarchically. We create categories and subcategories, forming a tree-like structure that shows the relationships between different concepts, like that mobile health taxonomy on slide 7.
I see. It's like organizing a dictionary into chapters and sections. Gives you a roadmap for navigating a complex field.
That's the idea. Taxonomies bring order to complexity. They provide a framework for understanding how different concepts are connected and make it easier to find what you're looking for.
This is fascinating. I'm starting to see how much structure goes into organizing information. And we haven't even touched on Thesauri and ontologies yet. I'm already feeling overwhelmed, but in a good way.
It's a lot to take in, but it's all connected, and we'll unpack it step by step.
Okay, good. Because my brain needs a little break before we tackle those more complex systems.
I hear you, but I think you'll find the next part even more interesting. The Thesauri and ontologies take information organization to a whole new level, ready to dive deeper.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
We've covered a lot of ground already. From metadata to taxonomies, it's amazing how much thought goes into making information easy to find and use.
It's like a whole hidden world behind the websites and databases we use every day. Before we move on, though, can we go back to taxonomies for a sec? You mentioned they can be tailored to specific fields. Can you give us some more real-world examples?
Sure. Think about online shopping. Ever noticed how they use those categories and subcategories to help you find what you're looking for?
Yeah, like when I'm trying to find a specific type of shoe on a shopping website, is that a taxonomy in action?
Exactly. They're guiding you through this massive catalog of products, helping you narrow down your search.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not just for organizing academic stuff, it's all around us.
Right. And it's super helpful for researchers, too. Imagine trying to find a specific research paper on something like climate change.
Oh, yeah, that'd be tough. There must be thousands of papers on that.
Exactly. Without a taxonomy to categorize and classify all those papers, it'd be a nightmare to search through, like finding a needle in a haystack.
Wow, that's a great analogy. Taxonomies are like the unsung heroes of information management.
Absolutely. They're essential for our data-driven world. Okay, so we've covered controlled vocabularies and taxonomies. Now let's jump into those more complex systems you mentioned. The Thesauri and ontologies. Slide 8 describes the Thesauri as a networked collection of terms. What does that even mean?
Yeah, it sounds pretty technical.
Well, imagine a thesaurus not as a simple hierarchy, but with more complex relationships between terms. It's not just about parent-child categories, but also about linking related terms together.
So it's like a web of interconnected concepts instead of a strict tree structure.
Exactly. And this can be super useful for discovering information you might not have found otherwise. Like when you search for something online and get those suggestions for related terms.
Oh, right. So the search engine is basically anticipating what else I might be interested in, even if I didn't think of it myself.
Exactly. The thesaurus is helping you broaden your search and discover those hidden connections between concepts. Pretty neat, huh?
That is really cool. Okay, now slide 9 takes us to ontologies. And they seem to be the most sophisticated systems we've talked about so far.
Yeah.
We even have this pizza topping ontology example, which looks incredibly detailed.
Ontologies are amazing. They go beyond just relationships between terms. They actually model the knowledge domain itself, all the concepts, their properties, and the relationships between them, creating a rich and complex web of meaning.
So it's like a blueprint for understanding a particular domain, right?
Yeah.
Defining all the key elements and how they interact.
That's a great way to put it. And while the pizza topping example is fun, ontologies are being used for some really serious applications, like scientific research and artificial intelligence.
I can see that. It seems like they could be really valuable for building systems that can truly understand complex information.
Absolutely. Ontologies are at the cutting edge of knowledge representation, and they're crucial for developing intelligent systems.
Wow, we've come a long way from simple controlled vocabularies to these super complex ontologies. It's amazing to see how these ideas build upon each other.
It really shows the ingenuity of information science, right? Finding ways to handle all this information overload.
Totally. Speaking of tackling challenges, slide 10 introduces metamodels. Are those even more complex than ontologies?
They're a bit different, actually. Think of them as blueprints for creating other models, like a set of Lego instructions you can adapt to build different structures.
So metamodel isn't a model of a specific domain, but a model of how to create models. That's pretty meta.
Exactly. And this is super helpful for ensuring consistency and compatibility between different systems, like having a common set of building blocks.
Right. If everyone's using the same basic elements, things are more likely to fit together smoothly.
Exactly. The image on slide 10 shows how we can view metamodels in different ways, as building blocks for models, representations of a specific domain, or even instances of other models. It's a versatile concept.
You're definitely getting into some deep conceptual waters here. But before we get totally lost, let's shift gears and talk about navigation schemes. Slide 11 shows a data flow diagram, or DFD. It seems to be a visual way of representing how information moves through a system.
You got it. A DFD is a powerful tool for understanding information flow, from input to output. The example on slide 11 shows how patient information flows through a healthcare system during a visit. Each step of the process is visualized so you can see how data is collected, processed, and shared.
It's like a map of the information journey, with all the different stops along the way.
Exactly. And this is crucial for designing good navigation schemes. You need to understand how users will interact with the information, what paths they'll take to find what they're looking for.
So it's not just about organizing the information, but also guiding users through it efficiently and intuitively.
Exactly. A well-designed navigation scheme anticipates users' needs and makes the experience smooth and seamless.
This whole deep dive is making me see the information world in a totally new light. And to wrap up this part, we have this diagram on slide 12 that shows the spectrum of informatics schemes from simple to complex.
It's a great visual summary of everything we've talked about, starting with controlled vocabularies, then moving through taxonomies, Thesauri, ontologies, and metamodels. And we see how navigation schemes tie everything together, helping users find their way through these complex information landscapes.
It's incredible how each idea builds on the previous one, creating more and more sophisticated ways to organize and navigate information. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by all this information, but in a good way.
It is a lot, but once you start to see these structures, you realize they're everywhere. And it's actually empowering because it gives you a deeper understanding of how information works and how to use it more effectively.
That's so true. This conversation has been so eye-opening. Before we wrap up, though, are there any exciting new trends in information architecture that you're keeping an eye on? Like, what's on the horizon for this field?
One area I find really fascinating is the intersection of information architecture and artificial intelligence. We're seeing these intelligent systems that can automatically organize, classify, and retrieve information.
Oh, wow. Like AI that can do the work of a librarian.
In a way, yeah. Imagine a search engine that understands the context of your search and gives you truly personalized results. Or a library catalog that recommends books based on your reading history and interests.
That would be incredible. But what happens to human information architects? Do they become obsolete?
Not at all. I think human expertise will always be important, even as AI becomes more sophisticated. Information architects will need to work alongside these systems, guiding them, providing oversight, and making sure ethical considerations are addressed.
It sounds like a cool partnership.
Yeah,
Human intuition combined with AI's processing power.
exactly. This collaboration will lead to even more accessible, discoverable, and meaningful information for everyone.
This has been an amazing deep dive. We've explored the foundations of information architecture, its complexities, and even got a glimpse of its future.
It's been a pleasure exploring these concepts with you. And remember, this is just the beginning of your journey. There's so much more to discover within the world of information architecture.
I'm definitely feeling inspired to keep learning and to apply these ideas in my own work.
That's great. Keep exploring, questioning, and challenging assumptions. The information world is always evolving. The more we understand it, the better we'll be able to navigate it.
You know, this whole deep dive has really changed how I look at things. I'm noticing information architecture everywhere now, like how my favorite apps are organized, or even the structure of a research paper.
It's like once you see the patterns, you can't unsee them.
Exactly. And I'm realizing that good information architecture isn't just about efficiency, it's about shaping how we understand information.
Absolutely. The way an information system is designed can actually influence how people perceive the information, make connections, even draw conclusions.
Right. So it's not just about presenting information, but about guiding the user's experience.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that information is never truly neutral. The way it's presented has a huge impact on how it's received and interpreted.
That's a great point. It makes the role of information architects even more important. They have a big responsibility to design systems thoughtfully.
I agree. They need to be aware of the potential impact their design choices can have on users.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. As we wrap up, is there any one key takeaway you'd like to leave our listeners with? Something to keep in mind as they navigate this ever-expanding information world.
I think the most important thing is to stay curious and develop a critical eye. When you come across information, don't just passively take it in. Really think about how it's organized, labeled, and presented. Ask yourself, why did they make those choices? What impact could it have on my understanding? By engaging with information actively, you become a more informed and discerning consumer of knowledge. And maybe you can even contribute to building better information systems in the future.
That's a powerful message. It reminds us that we all have a role to play in shaping the information landscape. This deep dive has been so enlightening. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights.
My pleasure. Remember, the world of information architecture is vast and constantly changing. Keep exploring, keep learning, and never stop asking questions.
Well said. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of information architecture. We hope you've gained a new appreciation for the structures that change how we understand the world. Until next time, happy organizing.